Yer. What up,
Yeah.
everybody? Welcome to the fucking stream. Say what's up in the chat. We want to hear from you in the chat, and I'll get the fucking comments displayed. We should be joined by Cash Bowie, Michael Lee, the co-founder of Abstract today. That is why we are here today. So hopefully he joins us soon. He definitely said he was down, but haven't heard from him today. So we'll see. And if you're listening on the space. Give me like some thumbs up to make sure that you can actually hear what we are saying. I hope that the audio is going through to the space well. But yeah, say what's up in the chat. Like and retweet if you're on Twitter. Share the link wherever you're at. That would be much appreciated. But here we are with the fucking man, the myth, the legend himself. He just joined. What's up, Michael? How are you, man?
Jim, what's good?
GM, dude. Dude, I want to say thank you for joining first and foremost, man. I was very surprised that when I hit you up, I was just like, hey, dude, I do Web3 streams. Would be dope to have you on. Like, I was expecting you to just like completely fade me, and you were just like, bet, dude, let's fucking set it up.
I would always fade any founder or core team that is one unresponsive and doesn't actually value creators. Like I think this is, and Lucas set this tone, right? Where, it's like one, as you see these platforms rise, like in Web 2, like who is it on the backs of? Creators, right? You got like Facebook, Facebook, has 1.5, billion users. Like that is what substantiates like the $1 trillion like market cap, right? That's users, but like why are the users there? Because the creators are there, right? Creating, fire content, creating just like, whether it's education or entertainment. And I think that's effectively what Abstract is, the consumer terminal. And so whenever creators reach out to me, I'm like, yeah, like that is my job. Is like number one is like, how do I work with entrepreneurs that are building dope ass apps, like to bring them in, making sure that, we help them tweak the levels to where they have even a 5-10% better chance of product market fit. And then it's like, how do you get creators on the platform, right? To, create this flywheel where, a lot of these amazing entrepreneurs and their apps are coming to the platform because there are creators that are going to help promote them, right? Help expose them to their followers. And then again, you get quality users that have discretionary income, that are really excited about trying new technologies and new apps. So yeah, it's a long way of saying, definitely always prioritize creators.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, man. It's very evident, man. I was like super stoked that you replied, and I was like, hell yeah, dude. We're about to have the fucking co-founder of Abstract on the stream. That's fucking sick. So yeah, man, if you're tuning in, like I said, share the link around, try to get as many people in here. I know that Dan will be joining us later, hopefully soon. They're on like some big chillin' space. I don't know if you're aware of it, Michael, but they do this space pretty much daily, I think, and it's a huge Pangu space, and I think Dan's there as well as Luca. So hopefully we get some more folks joining in a little bit. And before we get too into it, we haven't even really introduced Donnie or Cap onto the stream yet. So what's up, Cap? How's your Wednesday going, fucker?
Dude, it's Wednesday, man. Fucking halfway through the week. It's hump day. The grind don't stop. Trying to stay on course and stay productive with everything going into the end of this month. Last couple days here to hit some goals and objectives that I'm trying to finish. But yeah, man, moving along nicely. And, been tapped in with Abstract since the launch on Monday. Getting on the platform, doing all the things I need to do to get experience points, make sure I'm using the platform, discovering and checking out different dApps and coins there. I'm just overall just really excited for like just the current crypto market, right? A lot of people are just bullish on maybe new, clarifications regarding crypto laws in the US, and maybe that's bullish for companies building more in the US and better products. And with that, looking at Abstract in the consumer space, really excited about that, right? I think we've not really seen a super successful consumer blockchain, or what does that even look like? What other different types of products and dApps come out of a consumer blockchain versus, where we've been with Solana, Ethereum, say even, right? So yeah, looking forward to getting into it with Bowie over here and asking some questions. But in general, personally, I'm just trying to stay as tapped in with everything going on because there's so much and attention is limited, that it's kind of like, everybody's job is to like take in as much information and then quickly try to filter it out to what's real and what's not, what's actually moving the needle in terms of like crypto onboarding, mass adoption, getting more liquidity to this chain or that chain, right? So it's a never-ending process, right?
Yeah, man, there's always a fuckload of stuff to stay on top of. That's one of the cool things about the Abstract global wallet, or the dashboard, as some people are calling it, is like it does make things very easy to stay on top of at least what's going on the Abstract chain. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. And we'll definitely get into that. I know Dan just hit me up and was like, yeah, we're wrapping up space. Hang tight. And I was like, all right, all good. But let's tap in with Donnie. Donnie, how's your Wednesday going? Here?
Dude, it is hump day. It's been a long week so far with my IRL job, so excited to get into some Web3 talk tonight. Very bullish on Abstract. I have not transferred over my Pengu from my Sol wallet to my Abstract wallet yet, so I got to do that because I'm really interested in seeing the Abstract streaming and the fact that people can tip with Pengu. So I think that's a really cool feature. Interested to talk more about that and just everything Abstract. I really hope this is what I think everybody in Web3 has been waiting for, is something that can bring what we call the normies onto Web3. And I think if anybody can do it, the route Abstract seems to be going looks like the best route possible to bring the masses onto Web3, and I'm very excited for that.
Oh yeah, yeah. You mentioned Abstract streaming. I think when Dan joins us, we'll be live on Abstract through Dan's channel, which will be pretty cool. Dan's been killing it, dude. He's been streaming every single day. Playing Nifty Island or doing whatever, making music. And I'm pretty sure he's live on Abstract as they're doing that chillin' Pengu space right now, which is pretty sick. So, but yeah, while we wait for Dan, let's go over to Cash Bowie here. Dude, I'd love to take a step back in time, like prior to Abstract, right? Because we have tons of stuff to talk about with Abstract, but just like looking at your profile just on Twitter, because I wasn't really aware of you before Abstract, to be honest with you. But you used to work at Activision. You were with ZK Sync, ABC Network. You have quite the resume of cool stuff that you've been up to career-wise prior to Abstract. So would love for you to just kind of introduce yourself to everybody here and kind of go through your history and like what led you to starting Abstract.
Yeah, no, it's, I just really have, I've kind of started off on Wall Street, kind of went into presidential politics on the, operative side, and then, went, Web2, kind of Silicon Valley startups. The last web thing in the Web2 that I did was we took Kubernetes, which is open source technology out of Google, raised a bunch of loot, commercialized it, got it into like 72% of Fortune 500. And within 26 months, we got to $1 billion annual run rate. And then we took that public. And then, obviously on the consumer, other things on the consumer side was that Activision Blizzard launching 5 games, everything from Overwatch 2, the reprise of Modern Warfare 2. The last game that I did was Diablo 4. And then, just kind of been in crypto for a while. I think moving to Silicon Valley back in probably like 2012, I think there was like a scene there with like Hal Finney and a lot of these like OG Bitcoiners where, it's kind of like you can either like join like a Ruby on Rails, like, meetup, or you have all these like goated cypherpunks from like the mid 90s, right? Where they started off with like, small talk, meetups to, agile programming to then like these were like the kind of the OGs of cypherpunkism. And then all of them kind of moved into Bitcoin. And like, no one really thought that Bitcoin would, be where it is. I think it was like a really interesting, like an aggregator of like-minded people that believed in privacy and open internet. And then eventually when I was at, taking Kubernetes, commercializing it, got into the Ethereum seed round and worked on ETH 2.0, and that was like the way to make Ethereum go fast. And again, like I got into that because I grew up with a bunch of, kind of Chinese expats that came over to New York City where I grew up playing World of Warcraft. And those were the earliest Bitcoin miners out of China. And then they had the first Bitcoin meetup in Beijing while they're all going to school, like between like Beijing and Peking University. And they all got normie jobs, moved to Shanghai and took their like hobby, Bitcoin meetup with them. And Vitalik, as he was raising, it's kind of hard to believe in retrospect, when he was raising, just monies for Ethereum, like going into that ICO, nobody in North America, no one in, Europe really wanted to fuck with him. They were like, nah, like this is not interesting. And then I think it was like in a subreddit, he found these guys and then he went over to, like, I don't know, to his credit, like I think he learned Chinese in like 3 months, and then he went over to China and was like couch surfing. And one of my boys was like, yo, there's this like genius Russian dude, like talking about this programmable, like, blockchain. And I was like, and I was like, all right, like that sounds interesting. And it kind of became like a night and weekend hobby for a really long time. And then since then, I think after ETH 2.0, got into a bunch of different projects, helping out with whether it's Cosmos, Polkadot, Dfinity, and took like a break to go to Activision Blizzard, more as a favor to, Bobby and that team over there. Cause I came up as a kind of a semi-pro Call of Duty player back in the day before Call of Duty League. Never really cared to like, go pro. Again, like, my fault. I didn't think there was actually any money in it. And obviously there's a shit ton now, right? Whether you're a pro player or a streamer. But the next best thing was, eventually later on, just go in and help launch games. And I ended up coming back into crypto, especially Ethereum, with ZK Sync. Is the Andreessen Horowitz team, their big bet for this cycle was ZK technology, and ZK Sync was their best bet as far as making Ethereum go fast. So like, came in, helped get that to hypergrowth, to TGE. And throughout that whole process, kind of known Luca, Lorenzo, and that whole team for a minute, helping them with Pudgy World when I was at Activision Blizzard. And again, like there's a couple of us that came out of the Ethereum seed round that really believed in this thesis of consumer crypto, where if blockchain is going to be the next dominant computing environment, like cloud, mobile, containers, you're going to have this explosion of apps that are collectively worth trillions, right? And again, like hindsight's always 2020. Again, like I'm super shit at like predicting the future, but pretty good at pattern matching, right? So like when the rise of cloud came out, like what did that do? And you got Amazon.com, you got Facebook, right? When you shifted over to mobile, you got things that were specific to the phone, right? You had GPS, you had phone, and then you get Instagram, you get Uber, right? You get mobile gaming, things like, whether it's Candy Crush or Clash or Honor of Kings. When you move to containers, that's when microservices architecture comes out. That's the thing that I had worked on with Kubernetes. Streaming, that there was an explosion. Discord, Netflix, right? Twitch. And again, there's a new computing paradigm that's going to come out. You could bet that it might not be blockchain. You could say that, it's going to be AI if that's not a tool and it's more of a platform, or quantum computing is going to come sooner than later. But either way, you got a 1 in 3 chance that blockchain is going to be the next computing environment. And these shifts always happen every 8 to 12 years, whether you like it or not. And it's been a minute. I think when we worked on Kubernetes, that was like 2014, 2015. We IPO'd that in 2018. So we're due up for that shift. And when that shift happens, and everyone agrees, like this is a new computing paradigm, you get a 10-year run where all the best entrepreneurs will figure out what is unique about this computing environment that creates really interesting apps. And I think we're right at this spot now where it's like, okay, we're all betting that blockchain is going to be that next paradigm shift. smart entrepreneurs are going to figure out something unique, right, about blockchain that creates blockchain-specific apps on crypto rails. And then now, what do you need to get consumers to take off? Three things. It's curation, because we all go to the internet. We don't go to some website with a bunch of links. You go to marketplaces, right? You go to the App Store, the Play Store. You go to Netflix, Steam, and I think that's where the shared vision with Luca, Saigar, Lorenzo, that whole crew, Vedant and Peter and Beans and Stinky Pablo, and it's like, okay, we need to do curation. Once you do curation, then you could do discoverability, right? So you're coming in playing, Duper, and it's like, okay, you love games, so okay, we're gonna serve you another game, right? Like that's the thing that the App Store does well, right? They're not gonna, if I'm coming in playing Clash, they're not gonna serve me a workplace productivity tool, right? And vice versa. So you gotta do that discoverability to where it's like, okay, now let me expose you to other like category apps. And then the third thing to get right is distribution, which no one does in crypto so far. It's like, if you have that app where you're coming in, I'm introducing it to you, you kind of easily bootstrap your first 1,000, true believers, and those people then tell their friends and family. So now you get to 10,000. And then how do you get distribution to where you take it to 100, take it to 1 million MAUs? And I think, again, just because the core team all came from consumer, it's not even just what, the Pudgy team did, right? Luca was goated in consumer well before that, right? Taking Gel Blasters from zero to like 500 million. Lorenzo was, he had this like really successful, dev shop out in Silicon Valley. I think, that guy tripped over like 75 million in revenue, like mad quick. Saigar, people don't know, but he started off at Facebook, Uber, Robinhood before their IPO, Beans coming from Coinbase. Like everyone comes from consumer, and everyone has like that shared vision of, or at least a shared playbook of, you got to get curation, discoverability, distribution. I think that's what you're seeing with Abstract right now, that experience. And once, again, early days, but once you start getting all 138 apps that, that are committed to deploying this week or the next 2 weeks, and then you have another backlog of 400, you're going to start getting this flywheel where, the apps start cooking. A couple of them really just like, knock it out of the park. Yeah. And then you're just literally just running the playback of how Pudgy's really just broke into Web 2. And now you're converting crypto curious Web 2 folks from TikTok and Instagram. And then the network effects just take off.
Hell yeah, man. Dude, you got like Abstract obviously has a super crack team. And you kind of talked about that. And, coming from, this consumer focused background, however, still diverse with the different companies that they worked with and different experience that they had. I think it's super interesting. But we got Dan here. I want to introduce Dan to the stream. What's up, Dan? How's it going, man?
What up? Glad to be here. Already catching, I was late, but catching the tail end of what Michael was just saying. I'm going to reiterate what I saw in the chat. How is this guy so based? I know we've communicated on like spaces and stuff, Michael, but it's good to be here. Good to be, face-to-face digitally and, scaling that up. But I don't really have any immediate question other than what's the energy post-launch? Like, how are you feeling like now that it's out there, it is what it is and there's only room to kind of grow and fix and iterate and do things like that? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. In that what you want to get to is you want to get to launch, right? And once you get to launch, like once you have something out in production, and credit to like the Solana team, everyone hates on them for like, network is constantly crashing. But when those people forget, like those guys launched, I think March of 2020, when the world was shutting down, because of COVID. Because of that, I think the entire crypto market is like lost about like, I think 45% of its like market cap within like a period of 2 weeks. And I think there's two ways to approach like product development. You either get something out there and you have like a crack team where you're just constantly iterating, right? And again, this is the Silicon Valley playbook. Like you look back at Call of Duty, like the 2003, initial version. Like you look at Facebook, Uber, YouTube was a dating site when it first came out. Like all of those applications or those platforms, they were absolute hot garbage when they first came out, right? And what they did was like they just iterated just hella fast, right? Month over month, and then that compounds. By the end of this year, or next year, and year after that, as long as you're still at it, then all of a sudden you go from what Uber is or Uber was, which is like, ordering black cars to pull up to the club like a baller, to where it just takes over, it just reinvents all of transportation. And then it pulls in things like Uber Eats, right? And again, like, I think, that's because they've just been at it, right? And just ruthless about it, just constant, day-to-day execution. So I think there's that one play, right? And I think Solana guys did that, where it's like, you know what? People are going to like dunk on us for network going down, but we're out there and we're just continuing to iterate in production. And then there's the other side of things where it's like, I don't know, like German, technology. Like, what's the last great German startup? Like SAP? Like, what their approach is like the waterfall approach, where it's like, let's just cook in a lab for 5 years, build the most perfect thing. And what you end up getting is like that episode where Homer Simpson like designs a car and it's like complete trash, right? Because, you just like the moment has passed you by, right? Like what you're trying to build is not something like, the end user wants. Like, you don't really know what the end user wants until you actually start getting feedback.
Yeah.
So I think
if there is no feedback loop, how can you do that?
Yeah, and even for us, it's like, I think what you see out there, hopefully you'll see like the trajectory of where this thing is going. But this is like the collective, I think, thinking of a bunch of us that came from consumer, that understand crypto rails. But now it's like, you gotta, I think the great thing about crypto, even though it is noisy, you literally have tens of thousands of beta testers. And they're just telling you on the timeline, like the things that, would make this like interesting, like what features are more important than others. And then you just got to pattern match and have a system to where you can triage all this stuff. And then you just, see folks like, Saigar, CTO, just crushing through, right? Whether it's a bug fix or just, pushing out a new feature. And again, that's where, these like go-to teams just, kind of differentiate themselves. It's not like the product that you actually put out, it's how fast it actually improves, like week after week, month after month. So I think if anything else, we're excited to get this out there finally. And then start getting feedback. And then also it's a forcing function for a lot of these apps to then like get their shit together and just get out there. Because otherwise you're missing all these eyeballs coming in. You're missing season one of this like battle pass XP system where it's like shit, like, multipliers like getting all the, the eyeballs, or, certain collections, Final Bosu versus like others. Like, so I think there's like that healthy competition where within the ecosystem, it's allowing the entrepreneur to be like, okay, I don't want to miss out, or they can be measured, right? And they can just be like, there's 138 apps coming out. I'm just gonna like hang back in the cut, and then I'm gonna come out like for season 2.
Yeah. I was actually saying that to the boys about, just the way things could roll out. We might actually see some of the most like shiny or successful or, long runway projects come out a couple weeks after, just because they're being measured, but also, to your point, balanced in their approach, that they can't wait too long because there's attention here. There's the first, big boom and a lot of fun iterations to come. Like you said, I know I already saw Saigar and others tweeting like, we're intaking feedback, of course, and even little hiccups on the day of were fixed immediately, like the Discord thing, stuff like that. So it just shows like clearly the team's watching, listening, open to that feedback loop. And I'm looking forward to not only seeing what comes out from like, a project side, but from the actual, foundational team side, what you guys, put in the sniper and like you say, just run through, because I know that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, I think you look at like something like, say, like mobile gaming, the rise of that. And I think what you're going to see, what you always see in crypto is like a compressed timeline, which is great, right? Like mobile gaming took probably, like after like the Apple App Store launched, in 2008, it probably took, another like 4 to 5 years to where mobile gaming became like a dominant, like, subcategory within gaming. Because like after like 2008, yeah, you had Angry Birds in 2009, but you didn't really things didn't really take off until Fruit Ninja in 2010. So like literally 2 years after the platform. And And what Fruit Ninja did was it really solidified, the business model of, we went from pay to play, where I go spend $80 and get, the new Call of Duty, to where it's free to play, right? I'm just trying it out. And then I think what people realize is like, holy shit, like you're able to get a shit ton of users with that model. And then it just became the business model is I'm just going to optimize for a very leaky funnel. But if I can convert 1% to 3% to pay to skip levels or buy skins or something, then all of a sudden now you just trip over $1 billion a year like Candy Crush and Clash did, right? And then like then that's what, 2012. So like you went from Apple App Store in 2008 to 2010 with Fruit Ninja, 2012 with probably the first commercially successful games in Candy Crush and Clash, and then by 2013 you literally had this juggernaut coming out of China called Honor of Kings that did 100 million DAUs, and literally it was like printing $1 billion every month. So again, I think what crypto does is it's the same thing that happened in mobile gaming, but you just compress it into a year, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And that's the fun thing of crypto, is that it is just open source. It's really noisy on the timeline. But again, like the people who do it right, they're going to then use that to their advantage and just iterate really, really quick. And again, Solana showed everyone that, right? Everyone clowned them, but those guys were Silicon Valley guys. They were building deep infrastructure like in Web 2 before they did blockchain. And they just use that same approach of just constantly shipping, being very opinionated on what they were building, but also very open to feedback, and look where they are.
Something that's interesting, and like the difference I hear in the way that you're kind of approaching things compared to like other like foundation teams or whatever, is like you're talking a lot about like consumer focused and like DAU, but like I haven't heard you say much about like the cycle. And like I know that in crypto, like timing is super important, and so I'm curious to hear your take on like how abstract and like where we're probably at in like the greater this cycle, which is up for debate, obviously, like kind of how that interacts, right? Like because abstract could be positioned in a way where like the cycle doesn't necessarily matter as much, like I don't know. So I'm interested to hear your kind of take on that.
Again, my personal take is I look at the macro cycle, right? Not the macro, like the global economy, but I look at it more the cycle of technology, where like we talked about earlier, there's always a shift in computing platform, and it always happens every 8 to 12 years, like clockwork. You literally went from mainframe, client server, to cloud, to mobile, to containers. We're due up. And again, if you're betting on blockchain as a dominant computing platform, you have a 1 in 3 chance, because it's only blockchain, AI, and quantum. And I'm going to fade quantum because we're probably best case scenario 5 years out. Realistically, like at least when I talk to actual experts, like you're talking about like, I don't know, 10, 15 years out. AI, debatable. There's some people who really view AI as potentially a computing platform in and of itself, and then others view it as like a tool. Whether it's like agents or these like like how NVIDIA Jensen had kind of planned it out over like the 10-year roadmap, from kind of generative to agentic to robotic to physical AI. A lot of that feels like things that make us more productive versus like an actual computing environment. So I think a 1 in 3 shot at just being the dominant technology platform, not just abstract but just blockchain in general. Like I'll take those odds. I think it's actually higher. It's pretty much 90% likely. And so I think once you have that, it's like, okay, like the timing really is just, can you build technology that's actually differentiated in essentially an open source where everything is a commodity, right? Like you literally have 217 L2s and L3s on Ethereum, and you have another 115 alt L1s, right? And so you're talking about like over 400 blockchains. They're pretty much commodity. Like some trade-offs between like speed, security, decentralization, but for the most part, like they perform about the same. So then like the real difference is, okay, how do you take the best of all 3 of those categories, just speed. Obviously, it has to, be performant enough to service all the apps that are running on it. You don't need like a billion TPS. Like you don't even need like, you might need like maybe 200, 300 TPS right now. There aren't workloads right now that require some crazy amount of like, throughput. Okay, so you already have that. And you don't really, and it's like, again, it's like you're making like an avatar. It's like I'm playing like NBA 2K, I'm making my own player, right? You don't have to juice up speed like to the max, right?
Mm-hmm. And
then it's like, okay, like I want to make sure I'm secure, because hacks, especially for consumer, that'll just kill anybody. The entire consumer crypto category. That's why we built on Ethereum. So it's like we're deriving our security from Ethereum. And then decentralization, right? So you want to make sure that, no one's going to deplatform apps. So then it's like, all right, so then we're opinionated on what's the mix in our kind of blockchain NBA 2K player across those three dimensions. And then the differentiation for us is, how do you build this consumer terminal, where we're only in the business of attracting users. And again, we're just building that nightclub, and we're going to have all the cool kids in it, right? And we don't care about, there's a lot of blockchains out there that are just like complete fugazi, where it's like, oh, we got 10 million users. There aren't 10 million people in crypto, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
What we're going after is 100,000 people that are actually on chain that have discretionary income. And this is why we're anti-farmer. Now, again, I get it. If you're not born in the golden billion, yeah, farming is like life or death. I get that, right? But that's actually not going to help these entrepreneurs that are coming in that are trying to build sustainable businesses in these apps, right? They again, this is like Android versus iOS. Android is way more pervasive around the world, but where's like 80% of the revenue coming from? iOS apps. Yeah. Apple targets a very specific type of users, effectively users with discretionary income. And that's what we're doing, right? So you'll hopefully always see our numbers be lower than someone that's telling you that there's 10 million users on their network. And then all of a sudden, after TGE and whatever airdrop, network activity goes to 0 TPS because everyone's pieced out and farming the next chain. We're doing the complete opposite, where it's how do you start attracting the best users, quality users, and then that'll attract the best, app makers and people who are creating these projects on crypto rails, and then that then attracts all the best creators, right? That want to then promote and play and again, you're creating a space with what we have with streaming, and then you create this flywheel where all three of those parties are rewarded, right? If you're a top creator, you're a top entrepreneur that builds a dope ass app. If you're a top super user, you should then disproportionately get the upside in this kind of this almost like this gaming XP system that we have. And then all of a sudden the flywheel gets going, and then you're going to retain those great projects. You can literally have some dead chain saying, I'm going to give on-chain heroes a $50 million token grant. A great entrepreneur, what do they want? They want people to use their shit, right? They're not out there to go grab a bag from somebody else. They're going to make a bag by building a dope ass experience, either generating revenue or having a freemium model that then you can eventually monetize, or you've built something that's culturally iconic. So there's culture, social capital there. And again, if you have people who are leaving because someone's giving them a giant bag of tokens to come to their dead chain, you didn't want those guys anyway. They were just mercenaries. So I think now you have this great flywheel where you're only going to attract and retain the best entrepreneurs, and that's why users are going to want to continue to come and stay on Abstract, because it's like Steam or the App Store. It's that's where all the quality apps are.
Yeah. So I was gonna kind of bring this up, and I'm glad that you hinted on it already, because people have been talking about it, right? Where it's the XP, the creator, being a creator on Abstract, having these rewards, whether if you're a user or a creator, building up these XP points, right? People have already been speculating oh, is this something that just leads up to a one-time airdrop? And do you get a similar blast situation where, like you said, you have all of these farmers community farming for a end date of a token airdrop, and then the second it comes, all the activity stops. You lose your supposed community. And so I really love the way that Abstract seems to be approaching this system of trying to not only, provide value and bring value, but reward people that are bringing the value, right? And so, I mean, am I right in kind of assuming that these XP points and like the way you guys are kind of like trying to gamify and incentivize using the chain, is this something that's going to be like rolling on continuously? Are there going to be like different points in times where these rewards mean something or are redeemable, right? Is this something that's like never going away, where the experience points and the incentives are always there to try to keep rewarding the users?
Yeah, I think the playbook for building community is essentially what, Luca and that entire like goated Pudgy team has done, right? They've literally just put on a clinic for the last 2.5, 3 years, right? Where it's everyone loves the Pudgy community because they're not overly financialized, like they're really there in the huddle because, the two things that, that I think drew a lot of us to crypto, where, like, if you got in early to Bitcoin or like you're kind of out of the Ethereum seed round, you never really expected, Bitcoin to hit 100K or, Ethereum to really be like this global settlement layer. Like, you were really there to have fun and make friends. And I think that's what the Pudgy team did really well, in that, again, it's almost like you see that in gaming. You see that in like, like these like, Korea, K entertainment, properties where, you're part of the BTS army, or you're, you've been playing Call of Duty for the last 20 years, just because like that's where all your friends and family are. I think they've put on a master class in just replicating that on crypto rails. And you kind of take that where it's like, okay, people really want to be, how do you kind of ensure that the consumer terminal is also a place where, people have fun and people make friends. There'll be like a subsection where, there'll be a bit of degeneracy. People are, making money, and that's fine too, right? That's people go to Vegas for that reason too, right? To get that dopamine hit of, making some loot. Fun comes in different form factors. So I think it starts there, where it's like, how do you make sure that you program that in? And then two, probably I think a lot of crypto projects have completely bastardized, point systems, XP, this whole like even from the early days, like the whole airdrop mechanism was never really like designed to be what it is, where it's like this really shitty user acquisition tool where, and I think everyone's gotten super smart about this, retail and institutions, where, people like have done it to where it's like, oh, I'm going to then just give out, like, spend 20% of my token allocation, essentially bribe people, drive up metrics, ITGE, do some like low float, high FDV, dump on retail, like, and then like the VCs and the team just run away with their bags. And it's like it's super shit, right? And I think this is where if you go all the way back to like, not Ethereum, but like, like the spin outs from that, right? Whether it's like Polkadot, Cosmos, IPFS, Filecoin, Dfinity, like, even like Solana, like the slightly newer alt L1s from Solana to Avalanche to like, these other, kind of chains, they've always had like a very small portion for airdrop. And that was really just, it was just like experimenting. Is this an interesting way to do user acquisition? Or it would just be, because a lot of them came up through ICOs. It's like, and, how do you inject some additional, float or get additional community members that weren't in the ICO into, the token. So, but somehow like it just got bastardized to where it just kind of became this really shitty mechanism. There's nothing inherently wrong with airdrop, but there is in the way, at least in the last, like, end of last cycle, this cycle, how it's been used. But I think if you think about it, this XP system in a classic gaming sense of like, it's like a battle pass model where it's, again, I coming from gaming, it's like, if you do it right, XP systems, again, like I grew up on like Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, but like the newer ones, whether it's like the skills-based one, right? Whether it's like Elder Scroll or, I would love to see like a shared XP model where people can create clans, like, like Borderlands, right? Or you have these like dynamic XP systems, like, like Cypherpunk 2077. Again, not for this round, but in subsequent rounds. And I think where we're designing it is there'll be enough XP for the coming years. until you get to escape velocity, to where you no longer need to incentivize, builders, creators, users to earn XP, and then participate in the upside of the network. Because again, like, is anyone, incentivizing people to build on Ethereum? No, people build on Ethereum because it's the global settlement layer. People are building on AWS because it is the most cost-effective way to, spin up your startup, right? If you're building it, like an app or some kind of like, SaaS company. So there'll be at some point, when Abstract becomes a dominant blockchain because we have all these users in the consumer crypto terminal, you actually don't need it, because there'll already be an economy to where when you build on Abstract, because that has all the users, and you actually have a good product, then your product is going to convert at some rate, 5, 10, 20%.
Yeah.
And it'll take off. Creators are going to, again, similar to, no one's really paying you to be on, Twitch or YouTube. It's like, that's just where all the eyeballs are, right? And then because you have tipping, where it's like peer-to-peer tipping, where you keep 100% of it, if there's enough eyeballs there, you're going to get the brand deals. Like, it's the same. It's the same deals that creators get in Web 2, but on their terms, hopefully, right? You get a bigger
and it incentivizes a higher quality product too, or a higher quality content from the individual, then, because you're competing for that market in an active market.
And look how the team is doing this, right? From Luca to Finn to Logan, like the folks that are just really, the Don, that are really like fine tuning, the streaming side, where it's like you're whitelisting, kind of slowly ramping up to 500 to 1,000. And then what if you like institute this like Premier League, relegation, to where month after month, the bottom 10% gets cut. Those spots are given to the next batch of creators. And then over time, by the end of this year, you have a high density of quality content creators. So like now if I'm coming into crypto, like as a user, not only do I have a marketplace where it's the best apps, it's also the best content creators. Because like the thing that you don't like in Web 2 is, or especially Web 3, it's like I'm just dumpster diving on someone's shitty ecosystem landing page where they're not really curating it. And the most valuable thing is people's time. And then 2, I don't want to be doom scrolling on TikTok or, like going down a rabbit hole on YouTube trying to find great content. Like, I want to just go to a place where it's like a universe of 500, 1,000, like, and then there's discoverability. It's like, I love this spot. Like, show me something else that's similar, right? Once we get to that point. So again, I think for the meantime, for the short and the medium term, it's like, we're going to do a lot of curation, both on the app project side as well as the creator side. And I think that's just generally like a positive for, the user.
Yeah, I really like the platform in general, like getting on it first day one, interacting with everything, right? Really smooth to get started with, and definitely like super excited just to see more how that dashboard, that terminal continues to be refined, continues to be, more specific to like the consumers that are approaching crypto for the first time, right? I think that's a big thing too, is that, like you said, you're in the business of like getting new users and actual users, right? So I think that's major. I do know that somebody has told me they massively want dark mode on abs.xyz. So win dark mode. Bro, win dark mode.
Or win green mode.
Green mode. Dark green mode.
There you go. Yeah.
Dark green mode. Oh shit.
Yeah. No, it's Chef and team are working on that. They've heard all of you loud and clear.
All these DJs in their basements with the lights off, they went to Abstract and they were like, "Oh, my eyes, I can't see."
Yeah, we got some questions.
Hey, Cash.
Go ahead, Donnie.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh no, I was going to say probably what you were saying. We have some questions in the audience. One kind of a non-abstract, more hip hop question. That's Ken asking about Killer Bees. Your thoughts on Wu-Tang and the Killer Bees?
I have a funny relationship with Wu-Tang in that growing up in New York, I was just mostly into just skating, streetwear, and hip hop, because my best friend, I won't dox him, but he's Rick Rubin's nephew.
Nice.
And Rick would always tell us like where to go. So we would see we would see Jay and Biggie in Brooklyn. We would see Nas up in Queens. We would see, Wu-Tang out in Staten Island.
Yeah.
And it was like this period of time, probably like early to like mid 90s. And we were like that one token like Jewish and Asian kid that was given safe passage to go into Bed-Stuy. Like we got harassed, but we didn't get murdered.
Love it.
But coming up, like
Nice.
you just appreciate like what Wu-Tang did, that completely changed the game, right? Similar to how like 50 changed the game with that vitamin water deal. Like before that, every hip hop artist was like, yo, cash in hand. Like, yo, you want me on this spot? Like, 50 racks, I'll show up. And now they're thinking about like, how do I get that equity, right? How do I actually become a business, like, and kind of build myself up? And that was really 50 changing the game. Wu-Tang did the same thing. It's what you're seeing in sports right now with these super teams, right? They literally just built the first like super team, like in hip hop. So definitely just kind of grew up as, just totally you
said you grew up on the East Coast. What are your thoughts on West Coast hip hop? I'm on the West Coast, so I'm more of a West Coast.
Yeah, all about the East Coast.
I feel like I'm the only West Coast guy up here, so I got all this East Coast hate.
No, you got it. No, I only have the thing I love about West Coast, like the whole hip hop scene, they're super tight. Right. And you kind of you saw that with like with Kendrick and Drake, like they just like roll like as like a unit. Like East Coast hip hop, like we're pretty open, where it's like, like everyone can kind of come in, you can kind of be part of the tribe. But yeah, for whatever reason, like, West Coast, like especially LA, they're very like insulated, very cultish, which I also love because they're very opinionated as a result. Again, like I didn't really grow up on it, but I got to like appreciate it because like one of the things when I was at ABC Television, I was working with Chad Selesky, who was one of the co-creators and co-directors for the John Wick franchise. So it was like myself, Chad, and Ice-T out of all folks.
Okay, let's go.
This one cat, Champtown, who's like kind of the godfather of Detroit hip hop, and we literally just created this. John Wick meets The Wire, period piece of how Detroit became the murder capital of the world. It eventually got developed by ABC. It got sold, maybe Netflix. But like just working with Ice, it's like you just grow this appreciation of like just the history of like West Coast hip hop that again I didn't really deeply understand, and just how they really just built that up. From what Ice did to with NWA to like Odd Future. I think that's probably like where I kind of came in with Tyler and like kind of similar like timeline, and then to like what you see now with like Kendrick and like Nipsey and all that. So yeah, a little jealous. Didn't really I'm just more like kind of appreciating from afar.
Respect that. That is one thing I'll say. Roy mentioned earlier the team's cracked, but the team's also cultured. Not only Michael here, but also many others on the team that I know. Pudgy, Abstract. That convergence, I think, of like crack tech wise, but also understanding like the culture and the subculture that contributes to it. And like anybody listening to this can hear you speak the language. Like you're not like LARPing as a DGen or something. I think that like like that double fork is so crazy when it comes together the way it is. Again, cultured and like in tune technically.
I was impressed when he dropped the Kubernetes. He said Kubernetes, and I was like, "No, wait, this motherfucker was marketing Kubernetes." Bro's
plugged in many ways.
He said containerization. I was like, "We're in." This guy gets it. Let's go.
But again, like I think when you look at this stuff, like say like Kubernetes, like I knew that was going to be a cook, right? Because like again, like there's two things about Kubernetes that was so obvious where it would be a multi-billion-dollar startup. It's one, it's the Red Hat Linux playbook. There's this like open source technology that all the the cool kids are using. Eventually, the big companies are going to use it, but the big companies don't want to upgrade the operating system on 10,000 containers. They just want to push a button, have it with the latest security patches, like the latest operating system. That is a commercial solution. They will pay you money for that, right? And so like for us, it was like, okay, let's just run the Red Hat playbook with Linux. So that's one. And then two, it's like you got to hit the trends, right? So there's always a trend. It's always easier to surf a trend when you have product. And the trend was microservices architecture. And all that really means is you see a website. Websites used to just be a monolithic website, just one app, right? Comcast.com. If I wanted to change the button, and this is actually how we sold Kubernetes to Comcast, where it's like if you wanted to change that button from, the contact us from red to, green, that would literally take you 7 months because there's so many layers to that Comcast. One, there's so many pages to the Comcast app, and there's so many languages, right? Because they operate in like 98 countries. So then, like, if you want to make that one change, there's like this massive cascading effect where it's going to take you 7 months to make a simple fix. But when you look at Amazon.com, it literally is like, it's like a website. You can't see it, but it's like 10,000 little puzzle pieces, like a little mosaic. So if I had the brand asset, it's Christmas, I want to drop a little Santa hat on the shopping cart. As long as I have that asset, literally 7 seconds. And when you can then do that for enterprises using Kubernetes, literally what you're not selling containers, because no one gives a shit about that at the CEO level. They care about speed to market, right? From 7 months to 7 seconds, like that's material, right? And I think it's the same thing with consumer crypto, where, again, like we could have gone the degen route, giving you a better mousetrap to service, I don't know, the 5,000 degens that are just like wash trading coins, or maybe the 50,000 people that are on chain. Like that is one way we could have gone, right? But everyone's always talking about when are like the normies coming on chain, right? When are the killer apps coming? And if I think what Luca and the Pudgy team have really shown is like they're swinging for the fences, right? They're probably the only team out there that have really taken crypto into mass market, right? Whether it's like, Van Eck rocking a Pudgy, to Walmart and Target selling Pudgies, to 40 billion views of Pudgy gifts, like they've proven that they can do that. And then two, that's where they're thinking. They're thinking bigger. So then for us, it's like, it just makes sense to where, like that's totally what we're going to do. We're going to bring, at least 10 million, 50 million, 100 million new people onto crypto. And then when you have that number of people coming on, you're going to get super smart Web 2 devs that are crypto curious, that know how to build apps, coming and build fine. And it's just a function of time. When are we going to have the killer app? I don't know, but it's definitely going to come if you bring the users.
Yeah, that's why I think I like the approach right now with Abstract, even from like just the initial launch. Like it wasn't like this first day, go big or go home, the biggest projects, the biggest promises, day one. It was like, let's soft roll this. Some of the more hyped up projects that people are looking at are actually happening in the week to two after the first launch, right? And it's kind of like letting this whole thing kind of like breathe, I feel like, into the greater crypto community. And people are kind of picking it up. And I feel like it is going to hit that point where people are like, oh shit, there is kind of something special going on here. Oh shit, there are products and projects that are building something that maybe people didn't even think were possible because they weren't ever looking at it from a consumer first approach, right? So definitely bullish to see what kind of dApps and projects and people come up with that are approaching it from like a consumer minded front, rather than just the how do we make the degens and the farmers happy first, Yeah,
I think what you see, Saigar and the engineering product team working on now, it's like, all right, how do you, this is really optimized for normies to come on, right? Like, my mom who just got on Venmo, like she tried it out. She literally logged in with Google and she's like, oh, this is super fun. Like, she's like, I have a wallet, and she's like, it's like she ends up funding it from her Coinbase account, and she's playing some games, and she's like, okay, like now she gets it. She's like, okay, this actually isn't as like super like shadowy super coder, like from like what the 10 o'clock news tells her. She's like, okay, like this is interesting. Like she's like, this feels like the Apple App Store. And then now you have to then make sure that again, you can't leave the crypto natives behind, right? Because again, like I came up through like I'm sitting on like 47 MetaMask wallets, becoming being a liquidity provider on Uniswap, right? Like it's hard to, even for myself, it's like hard to change my behavior. So it's like you got to empathize with like the people that have made this industry to this day. So it's like, okay, how do we give them a path to one, just kind of operate as if it's like they're just plugging into a new network, and let them explore, and then they're going to realize, okay, like it actually is more beneficial to come in through apps like Global Wallet, see like the rewards page where it hopefully should feel like more of like a Call of Duty like player progress page, to where I'm getting badges, like there's a multiplier, there's eventually like this perk section that gets unlocked, at a later date. So then all of a sudden it gets, they're like, okay, I could still do both. So I think that's where, you kind of build for the audience that you are now kind of attracting, bringing in, but then you got to also make sure, you don't leave the folks that got you here behind.
Love that.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I want to ask Heathen is dying to know if you have a favorite pro wrestler. What's your take on wrestling? Heathen is
Do you think it's fake or is like?
Well, it is definitely fake. But how much do you like how fake it is? I guess is really
It's entertainment. Like I grew up on wrestling, right?
Okay.
Like, from I was super young, but like there was like the early days of like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, like the Iron Sheik. I was probably too young, but I do remember it. But then like I really kind of came in with like the Undertaker, like that was always my guy.
He was my favorite.
Triple H.
You like rolled his eyes back?
Yeah, no, it's love it.
Yeah, you made Heathen very happy with that answer.
I was just gonna say that. I'm like, Heathen.
Heathen is dying.
No, it's like there's like, I don't know, at least for folks that are probably like, on the younger side of Gen X to millennials to Gen Z, like there's like this new form of entertainment, which was really around like wrestling, video games, and now like, just sports betting.
Yeah. And I was going to say combat sports is a big part of that, like sports betting too, like UFC, Muay Thai, all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Hell yeah.
Facts. I'm curious about actually I totally forgot what the question I was going to ask. So,
dude, I'll interject real quick. I just wanted to like highlight, I should have said it earlier on, but like we're talking how bullish Abstract is, and I was streaming all the way through chilling spaces with Luca, and I've been streaming this too, dude. So like that's we're talking about the product, and I'm using the product for this stream right now. So that's pretty sweet, man.
That's the thing that I think we were always worried about. Because like, again, like, an app store where, there's all these apps, like that's like a no-brainer, right? But like having streaming, again, you gotta give flowers to Luca. Like that was his brainchild. And then we just rallied all these folks behind it. And we actually ended up hiring this cat named Terrence, because like, Saigar tried to figure this out with the team. And again, like streaming is its own thing, and it's fucking hard. And we hired this cat Terrence, who was 3 years doing streaming at Tesla, 3 years at Netflix. And the homeboy just like literally just built a prototype within like probably 6 weeks.
I love that.
Incredible.
What has the metrics been like in terms of streams? Like in terms of like people watching the streams? Is it like as much as you thought it would be, exceeding what you thought, or you guys look at the metrics?
That's actually a good question for Finn, who's really just been on that. I think for us it's more, does streaming belong in the consumer terminal? Like, is this a great way to like really just bring in like these amazing creators in? Because there's different ways to like try to figure out how do you kind of create this flywheel where you get the best creators. And I think there's all the textual stuff that you see on the timeline, blog posts and whatnot. And we're kind of doing that through Discord, right? You're kind of ranking up and getting up to GigaChad by, providing like, great content. And those folks are kind of coming in, and now they're getting like a multiplier on their XP. So you kind of take care of them that way, and you allow those people to continue doing what they do best, right? Which is create, great textual content for Twitter and, wherever else, whatever platform they prefer, where their audience is at. But then there's this other, like, this, like the rise of streaming that you just can't deny that is where this is all moving, us being on, just jamming out on this. Yeah. So I think that's where it's like, okay, like, what's the pain points there? Why are creators not, eating and doing well on these platforms? Because they're all centralized and they're taking like a massive cut. Like if this were, Web 2, they would tax you like 25% of those tips.
Maybe even more. I've heard. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've heard people like they take like 50% or more.
Yeah, right. It's like like especially with like, say, like once you add in like in Web 2, it's like you have subscriptions, like there's ad revenue, like, you know, you're selling merch. It's like the platform takes at least 60%. And I think that's just really fucking wrong. And I think that's where a lot of us that kind of came up through Ethereum in the early days and really envisioned consumer crypto. You would have these like decentralized, like, you know, people really mostly thought like apps, like a decentralized, you know, Facebook or decentralized, like, you know, mostly like social media services like Twitter. And it's like you get to own part of the network through the tokens. But this is like a much more advanced version to where it's like, all right, why don't you just create a platform, this consumer terminal, where you're just adding in all the features that everyone loves in Web 2. And again, like Abstract is not, you know, it's not a streaming platform. We don't need to make money off of streaming. When you don't have that as like a business objective, you can just give it all to the creators, right? And this, you kind of start off with like, okay, you know, tips should just go from, you know, viewer to creator. And then eventually, you know, once we get to some kind of critical mass, you can turn on, you know, the best of things from, you know, Twitch, Kick, you know, YouTube. You know, you could potentially do subscriptions. You could potentially do, you know, ads, and a majority of that can go to the creator. And then all of a sudden now it's like, if I'm coming up and, you know, it's like I have a choice as a creator to go to Web 2 versus, you know, the Abstract consumer terminal, where I get to just get, you know, close to like, I don't know, if not 100, but like maybe 90%, because maybe we're taking some to put into escrow to pay for gas fees or something. It's just 10 out of 10 times they're gonna come to crypto rails. So I think that was one of the things where it's like, it was less like what's the viewer count going to be like in week 1, you know, month 1, and it was more like, is a thesis sound? You know, does native streaming integrated into the consumer terminal, like, you know, and same thing with like swaps, like having that ability like in the platform, is that actually helpful? Is that value add? And so far, like we're kind of, everything's checking off where it's like, yes, like, you know, having Abstract Global Wallet with the reward section where it feels more like, you know, like a Sony PlayStation account, or like, you know, a Call of Duty like player profile like account, that seems to like get people really stoked. And then that whole like badging system, that'll get infinitely more interesting once you start integrating not just like the badges that you see now, but like by vertical, right? By category, like, you know, if you're top 10% in gaming, in trading, in, you know, digital collectibles, you start rack stacking people, you know, by vertical, and then by apps. So like On-Chain Heroes or Duper or Myriad, they could each have a series of apps based on like whatever metric is interesting for them is helpful. And then all of a sudden what it becomes is, it becomes like a third-party cookie system over time, where literally all of us have like a different, you know, we have a different like Web 2 footprint, like an internet footprint, but that doesn't really get monetized. But in Web 3, since it's all on chain, all of us have a different, you know, like a Web 3 reputation, like an on-chain reputation. So like if all of you guys are in the top 10% in the gaming vertical, and I'm just more of like a liquidity provider for, you know, for like a, you know, for DeFi, a new game comes out, like, I don't know, let's say like, you know, On-Chain Heroes comes out like, you know, many months down the line, or any kind of game, what they could then say is like, you know, I want to bootstrap their own sub community. They don't want to just go and reach out to every user on Abstract. What they could do is like look at the badges, and they could essentially use that as a filter to then reach out to you through, you know, Abstract Global Wallet, you know, send you a message and say, do you want beta code access? Do you want an airdrop? Do you want whitelisting into an NFT that is used in game? You know, do you eventually want to be whitelisted into like a compliant ICO? There's a whole host of opportunities, and the conversion rate's also higher too. So coming from consumer, you could do, you know, third-party cookie, like, you know, just like run a bunch of ads on Facebook and Google. The conversion rate in general is like 0.0015%. It's pretty shit. So it's like spray and pray. If I'm like Fiji Water and I knew like who's drinking smart water, that conversion rate, even though I'm paying more to reach that user, like I'm paying $8 or I'm giving you $15 worth of credit or an entire like case, the conversion rate is 13 to 15%. So then when you're hard coding this into that system, so people can then look at that and then say, yo, like I can just like filter it out because, you know, it's an API, and they can then just go reach out to specific people. Then all of a sudden it just becomes this amazing like acquisition tool for getting all these great projects. And then all of a sudden, like, just like how, whether it's like these goated collections like Pudgies, Miladies, and others get free airdrops all the time. People are individually getting, rewards because of who they are and like their activity on chain. And again, the ZK stuff, the ZK component just completely hides, your identity. And that's like the upside of why we're a ZK rollup. I think that thesis kind of held true. The App Store was like, we knew that was going to do well, and it was really just coming down to the curation part, making sure that there's some level of like standards of completeness of app, third-party audits to make sure that this isn't going to get hacked, some like UI UX standards, and then like the last part was that the streaming part. Like, was that like a really necessary? And also the same thing with like being able to swap with an Abstract Global Wallet. I think it's proving out where like these are things that are going to be super helpful to just be hard coded into the terminal. And at least for me, it's like I'm literally watching like I have a lot of shit to do like during the day, but like I just literally just have all the streams up, and I'll like on my 5-15 minute breaks, I'm just like watching people's streams, like giving out tips, and then it's just like even in the evening, it's like instead of like doom scrolling on TikTok, I'm just like watching streams, and this is only gonna get better and better.
It feels really good, like the whole space going into the terminal, like whether if you are looking at the tokens available, whether if you trade it into something, you can see your percentage increase or decrease. If you want to go check out streams, you can. Maybe you want to see what new dApps are being spotlighted just in general, right? Like it's all right there. It feels good. And I really like just like y'all, I feel like in general, like with NFTs specifically, just because like I'm a project founder and that's where I spend a lot of my time thinking about is just NFTs and that whole product and going to market with shit. I think like there's been so much availability in terms of like the technology that you can utilize within crypto, within NFTs, that hasn't been being utilized on the front end to create these user experiences, right? And I think that's one thing that like I'm noticing about Abstract is that even these badges, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, are those badges like soul-bound NFTs to the account, or are those just front-end UI shit? Are those actual tokens?
No, those are tokens, but we could also have soul-bound badges. I think this is where you're just literally just creating a playground for super creative.
No, and it's so dope. It has me so hyped. I'm like, yes, this is so cool.
And again, when people say like NFTs are going to come back, I think they are, but just in a different form factor. It's not going to be like 21. I honestly think it's going to be much, much better. But essentially, the actual NFT as like, as software meets creative, like you take that, and then that's the thing that's going to, be even bigger than what happened in 21. But I think everyone just generally thinks like, oh, like we're just going to run it back. Like that's not the case. Like you don't want to do that. You want to then build off of what happened in 21, and how do you make it more dynamic? And this is where this terminal hopefully gives, folks who are just a lot more risk taking and innovative to really push that entire space. And then you just leave everyone who's just, trying to run back the 21 playbook behind. And now you've kind of really pushed that subcategory of digital collectibles, NFTs forward.
Yeah, I mean, with one of the things that like I've recently built for our project was this idea of digital collectibles that are redeemable for physical goods, right? Not the first idea. We've seen it done with ETH on socks, right? Back in 21, right? So it's like, it's the same thing just being reinvented, but now being done like on a better performant blockchain. It's actually affordable to burn the token, right? It happens really fucking quickly, right? And so even on like that level of just like digital collectibles redeemable for physical goods, it's like I think like the projects that like use the NFT as the software, as the technology, and stop talking about NFTs and just start building cool user experiences and cool products. That's the win. Stop talking about NFTs. Just build the thing. Make it work. Make it tight. Make it fun. Like,
that's all people really care about. If you make it fun and something desirable, like it'll take off. It doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah, facts. No, I'm excited. I got my Abstract creator application in. Looking forward to doing some streaming content.
Yeah, I was going to ask if, how does someone like me or anybody here, we have a lot of like people that watch our streams that do streams themselves too. So curious, like how can people get tapped into the streaming side of Abstract if they're curious?
Yeah, I think right now, I think Finn and team had kind of rolled it out probably on Monday to about 250 and just adding like 100 folks every day. And then at some point, probably at the end of the month, you kind of, you cut out the folks who just really aren't either active or, producing like, great content, because you got to just, make sure that even like, even though it is like 500 to 1,000 eventually, like pretty soon, that it's just like people have like a 1 in 10 chance of discovering something interesting. Like, I think that's like the bar. Like at the app level, it's probably like a 1 in 3, 1 in 5 chance of finding something fun. Otherwise, people churn out. On the content side, I think, you could probably like, you can, before people churn out, it's probably like a 1 in 8, 1 in 10 chance. So yeah, I think Finn and team are just really just kind of crushing through that. And I think just pester them.
Yeah, Finn's the guy.
Oh yeah. Okay, and then we also have a lot of like people that watch our streams that are trying to build things here in Web3, and so I'm curious, like if someone's interested in building an app or something on Abstract, what's the best way to kind of go about that in your opinion?
Yeah,
there is a level of like permissionlessness, right, with Abstract.
Yeah.
But there's also like benefit in getting tapped into the team or whatever, so.
Yeah, so again, like the Abstract blockchain is permissionless to build on, but being in the consumer crypto terminal, like that does require admission. That's the only way you can do curation, right, to do consumer well. And again, like you want to be in the terminal, right, whether you're a creator or you're an entrepreneur building an app, because like that's where all the eyeballs are. So I think both things have so much like there's a creator form, there's an ecosystem form, and that just allows the core team just to like crush through it, every Monday. And then, we probably have like a 70% cut rate, of the pipeline that comes in. Because again, like you had like that one's pretty, pretty obvious. Like at least we're just very opinionated in like what apps would cook, right? Where it's like probably one of 3 things. It's like you either have to be an app where it's going to be a great business to where you're able to hit like revenue targets. Like if you somehow find product market fit, you'll get to $1 million in revenue pretty quickly because you're providing value to your users and they want to pay, spend money. The second criteria, category could be, if it's a freemium model, it's like, can you quickly do you have the probability of scaling up to, 1 million DAUs if you find product market fit? And then the last category is, even though you don't hit those revenue or those user targets, that you're able to be culturally significant, move and shape culture like within our space. So you could probably use that criteria to cut about 70% of the inbound, and then the 30% that is left, the core team will kind of internally debate and just they'll get reached out to, and Mason or someone from the team will just try to get assessment like, is this team capable of bringing something to market? Because I think what you're really guarding against is like you want to make sure that people don't churn out, as Luca and like kind of that goated marketing team kind of brings in users from TikTok and Instagram, really turns things up. You want to make sure that they stay. They'll come on chain because it's super easy. Just hit connect with Google, but they're not going to stay if they don't trip over something fun within the first like 60 seconds. So
for sure.
Yeah. And again, like it's a disservice too, like to all the other apps, because if people don't stay, there's no discoverability to then like send them to the next app, right? That's doing well.
So
and
true.
Then if you're a creator, it's like the economy isn't that great because there aren't many eyeballs in there.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely want to be respectful of your time. I know you're on the East Coast. It's about 10:15. So if anybody is watching and has any questions for Cash Bowie, please feel free to throw them in the chat, maybe even on the Abstract chat with Dan's stream. I don't know if you have any questions coming in from there, Dan, but I want to give the audience a chance to do that. Heathen is asking, who is your favorite Jersey Shore cast member?
I think in these like reality shows, I always like you try to find like who's the you god of the group, right? Like the member that's like that just doesn't get enough like time on the album or like camera time, and it's probably gonna be like Vinny G.
Yeah.
Vinny.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
That's a fair answer, dude.
For sure.
Yeah. You're always rooting for like that person. Like it's like for like the first 3 seasons, like they have like a total like screen time of like 15 minutes, and then like you're like, oh man, is this guy gonna break out?
He's gonna have to come up.
Yeah.
What a question.
Sorry,
Heathen's on 2 for 2 right now with these banger questions. Holy.
He usually is, bro. He usually is.
Got to talk about the culture. I like it.
Yeah, he's our culture guy. I was just about to say, I was like, he's our man of culture, and he does a vibe check on everybody.
Facts.
Probably the best culture question that I got recently was if Abstract's like the core team is Wu-Tang, who is each member? I thought that was a fun question.
Dude, they literally unpacked that again on Chillin' tonight, bro. They were like, yo, that was such a like a think piece. Like that was a great moment. And Luca was like, yeah, he had some other thoughts. He was more pumping Jay's tires on this particular space, but you know how those chats can go. It gets opinionated quick. Somebody came in with the Nas card. I was like, oh, bro, I'm stepping out. But yeah, that was a great question, and honestly, you answered well.
Yeah, that was probably one of the better questions. Because I had to like think about it for a moment, because like you just gotta go through the roster of people.
Yeah, you don't want to just like knee jerk it. You got to kind of like put some thought into it.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta ask.
Oh, he wants to know who your favorite Wu-Tang member is.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's tough.
You gotta love like RZA, just because he like brought the whole crew together. I love. But I actually do love like probably the best solo albums that are not Meth. It's probably like Ghostface, and I love GZA. Yeah, he doesn't just because he's like always just behind the scenes producing. Like I don't think he doesn't get enough flowers for what he does as an MC. But yeah, probably Ghostface, GZA, just for their solo albums. But again, like it's just hard to beat 36 Chambers. It's just legendary, just because it just changed the industry. I honestly think that super teams in like the NBA wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Wu-Tang. Again, that's just a personal take.
All right, now the most important question in crypto: titties or ass?
Can you have both?
Yeah. Chad,
both is a great answer.
He's a fucking Chad.
That's a certified Chad answer.
That is the Chad answer. If you answer one or the other, you're losing. But if you say fucking both, that's the Chad answer. Good job.
Yeah.
You just passed. Flying colors.
Yeah,
flying colors.
It's like you're going to like the Wynn buffet, man. It's like oh, when you eat in Vegas, it's like I gotta go to the Wynn buffet.
Let's fucking go.
Coco ready to full port Abstract after that answer. So
Oh yeah.
GG.
Bullish uptick for sure.
Want to give you an opportunity, Michael, to kind of touch on anything that might be upcoming for Abstract in the next couple weeks, for people to keep an eye on, and then we'll wrap up and let you go on your way. But yeah, want to give you an opportunity.
I think we've been pretty clear about this, whether it's like just like Luca's constantly just making the rounds, or you see Saigar just kind of building out in the open on the timeline. I think it's how do we create a user flow for crypto natives on their terms. That's probably something that we haven't optimized for. It's kind of our bad, but doing that now. And then the thing that at least all of us are working on now is like there was like 138 apps that have committed to launching like at mainnet launch week, and it's just getting those folks through the system. All of them, again, like I think the hard part of anything like this is like there's things that we can control, which is like we can make sure that the consumer crypto terminal is out there, like we have our shit together. But to then like coordinate like 138 people to show up like at a certain date and time, like that's asking a lot. But we got a few apps out there on day one, and another round yesterday, and then again today. So it's just like making sure that people are just getting out there, and everyone's stuck on different things. I think a couple of folks are stuck on third-party security audits because we're consumer, and that's something that we're just not flexible on. And it's like you can't just be like, oh, like I just get this like some third party like like tier F tier audits. Like no, like, you got to make sure that you got to make sure your shit's tight. Like like show up correct. And then others are they're trying to optimize for other things of like how do I, if it's a game, it's like I want to plug Abstract Global Wallet to the Unity SDK. It's like how do we make that happen to where it's a better experience? Like so there's a few kind of last mile stuff. I'm empathetic. It's like whenever you're building something, that shit is hard, right? And the last mile before you get out there is probably the hardest. So they're just trying to be empathetic with these folks and try to get in the trenches with them to help them like push things forward. And hopefully over the coming remainder of this week, next week, we just get all 138 projects out there, and then there's another backlog of 400.
Let's go.
Hell yeah, dude! Super bullish, man. I've had a great time exploring the Abstract ecosystem. Really, that terminal that you keep talking about is really cool and really interesting. I think it's super refreshing to see, and is definitely in the direction of like how do we actually onboard the masses to crypto. And like I can see a world in the future where when people, because like before people called it the internet or whatever, like they called it the World Wide Web, right? And so like, we call it crypto, we call it Web3, but like I think there's a world where people think of crypto and Web3, they just think abstract. Like, I'm just getting onto abstract, right? Like that is,
or they think wallet. They just say, "Hey, show me your wallet. What's new in your wallet? Oh, look at these dApps. Look at these things." Like,
and that actually might be completely renamed too, because like we only named it the wallet because we're all crypto native. But that for normies, like wallet might not be the right. It could be more like kind of like a Sony PlayStation account, right?
Yeah,
it's like maybe the name changes, or whether it's profile, account, or something a little bit more like passport. I think time will tell. Like as you onboard just more and more, like hopefully tens of millions of people, like you'll get a good sense of like what resonates with them. Again, or I think Luca's really good at this, in that he just has a pulse on the consumer. So we'll figure it out, and we'll figure it collectively. Like you'll literally get feedback from the community, and someone's gonna have a dope ass like idea, and we run with that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude. Just want to, reiterate my thanks for you joining the stream. Like I said, dude, it was awesome to see like your support immediately. Like we had never talked before, and you're just like, fuck yeah, I'm down, So that was super cool. Really appreciate your time and answering our questions. And then want to turn it over to Cap and Dan and Donnie, and any last thoughts before we kind of wrap up here.
Nothing really too much other than just like I'm gonna keep going to the abstract terminal every day, because it's just like something interesting to do, and if something catches my eye, I'm gonna engage with it and try things out as they go live on the blockchain. And then just for me in general, as like a builder, as a dev, as a creative, I'm just kind of watching and observing right now, right? I mean, you zoom out to the greater crypto landscape, there's like 3 more EVMs that are supposed to all launch this fucking year or cycle or whatever the fuck, right? And it's like, but only one of them seems to really be focusing on consumer interactions, right? So I'm really interested in seeing, where are we like 3 months from now? What does the landscape look like when the dust kind of settles? And personally for me, as a creative, as a dev, I see a lot of different alignments for why me or someone else might want to build on abstract, right? There's a lot of attractive things there right now, for sure. But, I'm taking my time with it. I'm observing, I'm seeing what people are doing, coming out with on the chain. I see a couple different things that just from my perspective would be really interesting to see on the chain. But maybe someone builds them, or maybe I get to build them, right? Like, I don't know. That's what's tight about this. And what's really cool just to see new blockchains come into existence is there's, a lot of attention, a lot of opportunities. And if you are able to build something that the market wants, that they resonate with, then you have just opened a huge door to opportunities and success for yourself on abstract.
No, I think you're doing the right thing. Like, if you don't have something that you are so passionate and convicted on to push out now, just hang back in the cut, right? Like, the first mover advantage is not necessarily a thing. There were 22 major search engines before Google. Facebook wasn't, the dominant, social platform. There was MySpace, Friendster before it. So, I think just observe and if we do our jobs right as a core team and as a community, we'll get more and more users in the terminal. And then that just allows you to then marinate on what's the idea that you want to then run with for the next 3-5 years. And then, you just got to figure out the timing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good advice for anybody that's a builder or, looking to launch something in general,
but everyone's trained to rush now, right? Because it's I got.
But it's almost like crypto kind of rewards that, right?
Yeah. We're doing the reverse. It's we're all going to be here for the next 3 to 5 years until this thing gets to escape velocity. So we got to make sure that the XP system is there to support people coming in on day 1 to day 1,000.
And last movers have an advantage too. I heard this with a comparison to Magic Eden, that Magic Eden is arguably the last mover of last cycle's marketplaces, right? They came out at the end of last cycle into the NFT market space, seeing what not only OpenSea, but what Blur failed to capitalize on. What were all the negatives that they encountered? What were all the positives they had? And it felt like Magic Eden took both of those and were the last movers in the NFT market space, and now they've capitalized on all the success by kind of being in that position.
No,
you let everybody else fuck up and make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm bullish. I'm bullish on my wallet. I'm bullish on Abstract, especially after the space. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And it really seems like Abstract understands or has a good game plan for retention, because I think that's the most important thing in crypto is anything new and shiny gets that initial push and eyeballs, but it's keeping that retention, a month later, 2 months later. And based on everything you've been saying in this conversation today, it seems like you really understand that aspect of it. To me, that's the most important thing is having that retention of people coming back after the first month of playing a game or buying an NFT or a shit coin or something to keep them back, 2 months later, 3 months later.
And people sleep on that. I think whenever you're building, whether it's a platform or an app, there's 4 cycles to, stages of building. It's that first thing is you got to build something that wows people, right? And then the second part is retention, right? You could literally build something that wows people that doesn't retain anybody, right? I don't know, a good example is Midjourney, right? Everyone's probably used Midjourney, right? To build some create some generative art. I'm probably one of the few people that uses it on a weekly basis because I essentially create storybooks with my kids. Everyone has used it, but the retention is less than 1%. So then all of a sudden it's everyone then skips to growth, right? Why would you ever do growth campaigns when your retention is near 0?
Yeah.
So it's get your retention up and then do the growth campaigns so that you can actually retain some percentage. And then last phase 4 is then you can think about monetization once you've had that sticky user group. So I think as people build, have those 4 stages in mind. And I think if you stick to that, you'll be in a good spot.
Hell yeah. Dropping alpha. Fuck yeah. Love to see it.
Yeah.
I want to give it over to Dan real quick and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, dude, I'll keep it short, dude. I just want to say thanks. Good to continue communicating and hearing from you. And I'm sure it won't be the last time that I'm not only involved in a conversation, but overhearing you in one. And bullish takes on Abstract. We're just getting started. It's literally the first inning of Abstract. So let's see how it goes. And thanks, dude. Up only.
Appreciate it, guys.
Hell yeah, man. Appreciate you joining us again. And good luck with everything. I think we're all super fucking bullish on Abstract. So
no, we're all in this together. So keep sending us the feedback. We're only as good as the feedback that you give us.
Dark mode.
Dark mode.
Yeah.